Right, everyone, we're using Illustrator to manipulate some of our figures in Igor Pro, set them up for a nice figure. Let's start from the beginning. I'm going to close down our figure, open up our Team Boron figure, Control Open, select the PDF, which we generated in Igor Pro. Our figure entered in without any errors. We zoom in. We see the figure. We hit Control R to bring up our ruler. Once the ruler is up, you'll notice that it's in points. We right click and go from points to inches. And it looks like we have about an 8-inch wide figure. Obviously, that's humongous. And we want to get that down to 3.3 inches wide. So we hit the artboard, which is over here. Once the artboard is clicked, you'll see the dimensions and the width up at the top. That's where we put in our 3.3 inches, 3.3. We hit enter. Our artboard now shrinks down. Okay. Well, now let's put our figure inside of that space. So we're going to use our direct selection tool. We click and drag across our figure. We select everything. Then hit the selection tool, which allows us to scale. I go to that right bottom corner and hit Shift, click, and the reason I hit the Shift is so the aspect ratio is not changed. Create a smaller figure, and then I'm going to hit Shift and use my arrows to then bring it in to the artboard. I'm going to expand it a little bit to get it inside of that space. Of course, we can always change it. What's interesting and what you see is that all of those lines are now thicker. And that's because when you do the compression, all of the thicknesses remain the same, which isn't necessarily a good thing. So here's another trick. We're going to come over, direct select. We're going to click and drag across everything, and then come to this 3 lines over here. It's called the stroke tool. And in stroke, under the weighting, we're going to put a value of 0.5 and see what that looks like. Okay, that looks decent. If we did 0.1, even thinner, what do you think about that? Yeah, too hard to see. So you're finding that sweet spot between the line thickness and your ability to see all of your data properly. So let's stick with 0.5, and we hit enter. Now, for any of our units, let's say we want to increase some of these numbers. We put it in at font 18, but let's say we want to increase this a little bit bigger. The other thing that we want to see is the layers. So click on layers on the right-hand side, and you're going to see the layering over here. And if we want to add extra things to the figure, this is where we would do it. For instance, I can create new layer, and in there I'm going to put letters, similar to what Stephen was doing with his SEMTEM figure. But right now we'll be doing more activity in this layer 1. So this is the cool thing. We're going to be able to select on anything here and be able to manipulate. That -1 is a little odd, and I'm not sure why it doesn't encode it in a coherent way, but I've seen that multiple times where the superscript kind of gets messed up. Right now what we're going to do is we're going to slightly increase the size of our wave numbers. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag around the numbers and wave numbers. And up top, we would set it as a particular size. But you'll notice the numbers don't come in. They do come in once you've got this type tool. So you kind of come on over here you should be able to select, and then it should give you the actual size of the font as, in this particular case, it says 7.976 point. We're going to put it at 9. But the way that we're going to do that is by selecting across all that stuff, then coming up here and putting in 9 per point, and they're going to slightly increase in size. And then if we want to manipulate it and move some of the numbers a little bit to the left or right, we can do it with the arrows. And we're a little tight with our Kubelka Monk units. And so one way we can generate a little bit of space is by, again, clicking and dragging with our direct selection tool, going back to selection and slightly decreasing the size of our figure, bringing it back up and getting a little bit more space on that left side. It's as simple as that. Take some clicking and dragging and you're ready to go. We want the bottom to be the same as our left-hand side. So I'm going to click and drag around there and put in 9, just like our other axis, and hit enter. And again, use the arrows to be able to align them. Now, you might notice that these numbers, it really, you don't need that many numbers there for like 0.00. We could go ahead and just change that. 0.0 or 0. And then we kind of bring it over there. But you'll notice it's not aligned. If we want to align it, Illustrator also has an alignment tool. So right now I'm going to select, use direct selection, and I'm only going to select those numbers. Dig this. If you go to the upper right, you'll see alignment. So you hit Align Panel, it opens up the dialog. Right now, we want all of those numbers to be aligned to the right-hand side in this particular case. It gives you all of these different align options. In this particular case, we're using horizontal align right. I click on it, and things should snap into place. Oops, I accidentally had selected 4,000. That's what it had kind of misguided that alignment. And now I have to bring that guy back. So that was the reason why it went all the way to that side, was because it was aligning to the right of the 4,000. I'm going to hit Control Z. Reverse that screw up. And now be more careful in my direct selection. And as long as I'm kind of in that general area, but I'm tight, like before I went down there, that was a boo-boo. I'm going to go over here, only select down to the 0, and you can see those. Now come back to the alignment tool, hit right, and it snaps into place. Now, do we trust Illustrator? It could bonk out on us at any time, so let's go ahead and hit Control Save. We want to go over into our letters, and we want to put in a symbol for, this is figure 3A. So we go in the Type tool, we come over here, we put in our test letter A. Obviously, that's much too small. And Stephen, can you give us an idea of the font size that you used for your figures?
24. And then I made it in bold, so then it's easier to see.
Okay, so you did 24. I'm not going to do Myriad Pro. I'm going to do
Use Arial.
Arial. And I'm going to stick with Arial for the time being. Offset it a little bit. Let's say I do want to do Arial bold. I click and drag over it, come down into our drop-down menu, and I'm looking good. Now let's just say I don't want to touch anything else while I'm doing the letters. You come over here into the layers, and you can lock out layer 1. And this is really important once you start doing some more sophisticated stuff. You've got all this stuff layering. You want to put in an area that highlights it, and you're graying it and putting in color and then zooming out to show some sort of zoom out effect. Like you lock everything out except for the one thing that you're trying to touch. And this is where layering really becomes important because you can put in you can put a figure inside of a figure. In Steven's case, he can end up putting in a figure inside of a figure, but then also highlighting a section of it in red. And any of that highlighting that he does in red or purple, whatever it happens to be, would be given a layer as well. So that when he wants to manipulate it, it's only going to happen there. The action is only happening where you want it to. And so let's say we have our next figure. We don't have it ready yet, but we could. I'm going to come over here, say create, and I'm going to put in FTIR boron 2. And then we would go ahead and open up the new one, bring that guy in there, and then add it into the space. And we can do this just as an exercise. Control O for open. I'm going to use a test case over here. I don't even know what this one looks like. Well, let's just give it a go and see what it looks like. Okay, this is an older edition. I'm fine with it. I hit select, click across with direct select, then do selection. I know it has to be a lot smaller. Shift click. Everything is selected. I want to bring it into the new figure. Copy and paste. Command C. Find my new figure. I'm selected on FTIR boron 2, so I know that's what it's going to live. I hit Command V, and in it goes. I made it a little bit smaller than it needed to be, but it's still within the same size regime. Again, I resize, shift click, keeping our aspect ratio the same. Begin to fill in the space and continue. Now again, because layer 1, and let's say I lock out letters as well, the only thing that I can screw with at this stage is within this area. Nothing over here. I may be able to kind of like get a little bit of data, but I can't do any active work on that section of the image. I hit Control S, making sure to save that guy. And we're ready to go. And I think that ND BBR3 down at the bottom might actually be a cousin of this one, because you notice that it has that same cosmic ray right there. I think it's the same one.
They look a lot.
Yeah, you see that? I think it's the same. I think it's the same one.
They look a lot.
Yeah, they look a lot alike. And I've never done it before. I've always done the smoothing in Igor, but I wouldn't be surprised if you could use one of the functionalities in here and delete out that hard line, that cosmic ray. But right now, it's selecting that area, and let's see what happens if I hit delete. It just like deletes that particular section that was kind of highlighted. I don't know the exact algorithm that's used to make sure that that particular section within that rectangle is eliminated, but that's how it's currently kind of set up. Okay, so that's some nice beginning steps for building a figure in Illustrator. Of course, I'll go ahead and stop the recording to make sure that we can keep it at a normal amount of time. I think 15 minutes is tolerable, you know, not a 30-minute video or anything. So I'm going to stop this guy.